In this lecture, I'd like to talk about volume discounting and bundling, each of which are examples of a type of indirect price discrimination. When pricing for an individual customer, a key economic idea is you should not bargain over individual prices. You could offer volume discounts, offer two-part pricing, or offer a bundle containing a number of units. Bundling different goods together can allow a seller to extract more consumer surplus if the willingness to pay for the bundle is more homogeneous than the willingness to pay for the separate items in the bundle. Oftentimes, the demand over multiple types of goods is in fact more homogeneous, and this is one of the economic reasons that bundling is a profitable strategy. Let's look at an example, a very simple example. Suppose that an individual customer, a single customer, is willing to pay $7 for the first unit of a good, $6 for the second unit of a good, $5 for the third unit, and so on. The price represents the value the customer places on each unit consumed, and we could construct from this an individual demand curve, which would be downward sloping, satisfying the first law of demand, that represents this individual customer's demand or quantity demanded at various prices. Now, if a seller sets a single price, they do that or identify the optimal price as the price at which marginal revenue is as close to or equal to marginal cost as possible. As long as marginal revenue exceeds marginal cost, the seller will sell more. In this example, that implies an optimal price of $5, assuming the marginal cost is $1.50. You could verify and should be able to verify that of all the possible price points, a price point of $5 maximizes profit when the marginal cost is $1.50. But if the seller just is selling these items on a standalone basis at a single price, the $5 price, it does leave some money on the table, so to speak, because there are three unconsummated wealth-creating transactions, and those three simply represent the consumer's willingness to pay $4 for a fourth item, $3 for the fifth item, or $2 for the sixth item. $4, $3, and $2 all are in excess of the marginal cost of production, which is $1.50, and yet those items are not being sold. So those are the three unconsummated wealth-creating transactions, the money being left on the table. So how can the seller do a better job of serving the customer, giving the customer more of what they want, more of what they're willing to pay for, and at the same time increase profits? And the answer is indirect price discrimination. In this example, or in this context, bundling. So to increase profitability, they have to sell those additional units at a lower price, but the key is without lowering the price obtained on the first three units sold. That's not as simple as simply cutting the price to $4 for a standalone product, because then you're selling 4 units at $4, which is less profitable than selling 3 units at $5. This can be done, though, in a number of ways, achieving this desired outcome. One would be to offer volume discounts. For example, price the first good at $7, the second at $6, in the form of a 2-pack selling for $7 plus $6 or $13. The third item could be priced at $5 in the sense of either a 3-pack at $7 plus $6 plus $5, $18, or you could simply run a promotion. Buy one at $7, get a second at $6. Buy 2, get a third at $5, and so on. Or you could use two-part pricing. A two-part pricing strategy basically prices the product as a fixed price plus a per unit price. You charge the per unit price or set that to be low enough so that all wealth-creating transactions are consummated. In this case, that would be or equate to selling 6 units. The customer's total value for those 6 units is $27. The total cost to produce is $9, so the total potential surplus, which will be split between the firm and the customer, depending on what those 6 units are sold for, that total surplus is $18. The $9 represents the fixed part of the transaction. The $18, the remaining surplus, is what's split. The customer total value for those 6 units, as I said, was $27. With enough bargaining power, the customer can capture all of that and simply pay a price of $9, can capture all of the surplus. Without any bargaining power, the customer might pay all the way up to $27. With intermediate bargaining power between the firm and the customer, the final price for all 6 goods will land somewhere between 9 and 27, that somewhere representing the relative split of bargaining power between the firm and its customer. Now, when selling bundled goods, don't forget, when bargaining with a customer, don't bargain over the unit price, bargain over the bundled price. Also, bundle like items where customer value decreases with each additional unit. Or bundle different items together when you have different groups of customers with different demands. Let's look at an example that illustrates this latter point. For example, a movie theater has 2 groups of customers who prefer 2 different types of films, romantic comedy and science fiction. Now, the theater owner cannot directly price discriminate in the sense that they cannot necessarily ask each customer, which do you prefer, and receive a foolproof identification of each customer. But we'll see that bundling tickets to both of these together can actually increase profitability and avoid this problem. Okay, so let's assume that there are 50 customers guys willing to pay up to $3 to go to the science fiction film, but only $2 to go to the comedy film. And then let's assume there are 50 other customers, gals, who are willing to pay $3 for the romantic comedy, but only $2 for the science fiction film. Now, if the theater sets a single price for a ticket to any movie, then it faces the classic pricing trade-off. It could sell to all customers at a price of $2 per film. So if they set a price of $2, we're going to get guys and gals both say, hey, that's a great deal for the romantic comedy, let's go to that, and let's go to the science fiction film as well. So let's assume, kind of as a backdrop here, that we've got also a classic relational trade-off going on where the guy and the gal are going for a date and they're trying to figure out which movie do we go to. The gal wants to go to the romantic comedy, the guy wants to go to the science fiction. So if the price is $3, then there's a real dilemma here, because this is where the rubber meets the road. I definitely don't want to pay, if I'm a guy, $3 to go to the romantic comedy, and the gal says I definitely don't want to pay $3 to go to the science fiction film. But if the price is $2, they're both willing to go to both. So if the firm, the movie theater, sets a price of $2 here for each ticket, everybody wins. At least the guy and the gal win. They say, look, okay, let's make a compromise. I'll go to the science fiction film with you, says the gal, because it's only $2 and I'm willing to pay that. If you then go to the romantic comedy with me, and the guy says, well, that seems fair. I'm willing to pay up to $2 to go to the romantic comedy. If the movie ticket prices are $2, I'll do that. So they both end up going to both movies. So at a $2 ticket price, 100 tickets are sold to each show, and the total revenue is, this is actually a typo, $150 is a typo. Total revenue should be $200 down here. Let's correct that for each of the 2 types of movies. So total revenue then would be $200 plus $200, or $400 at a $2 ticket price. Now, what's the other alternative? Another alternative is to, from the movie theater's perspective, say, well, look, some of our customers are willing to pay $3 for each of these movies. Let's charge $3. Well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen, let's go back to our relational dilemma for a minute. The gal in the relationship says, no way, I'm not paying $3 to go see a science fiction movie. And the guy says, no way, I'll pay $2, but I'm not paying $3 to see a romantic comedy. Everybody loses in this situation. The gals go to the romantic comedy alone. The guys go to the science fiction movie alone. The movie theater sells only 50 tickets to each of these 2 movies. 50 romantic comedy tickets to the gals at $3 a piece, so $150 of revenue. 50 tickets at $3 a piece to the guys to the science fiction film, at $150 a piece, and total revenue is $300. So pricing low in this case is more profitable than pricing high. If the movie theater is setting a single price, it's better to price the tickets at $2 than at $3 and earn $400 as opposed to $300. But now let's consider another scenario, a win-win-win scenario we will see. If the theater combines the movies in a double feature and bundles the tickets to the double feature at $5, what do we see? We see that the gals say double feature, I don't really like the sci-fi, but I like the romantic comedy. $5, yeah, that represents what I'm willing to pay to go see them together. I'll pay $5. Guys say, I don't really like the chick flick, but I'll pay $2. The science fiction, I'm willing to pay up to $3. $5, yeah, I'll buy that bundle. It's a win-win-win. The movie theater generates revenue of $500. The guy and the gal are back together, they go to both movies together, everybody wins. Bundling in this way, from an economic perspective, the reason bundling works is because consumer demand for a bundle of goods is more homogeneous than consumer demand for individual goods. We can see that the gals and the guys had different values for every single individual movie type. But when we look at the bundle, the double feature of both movie types, their values are exactly the same, $5 and $5. And this is a very general economic phenomenon, that consumer demand is more uniform or homogeneous when we've got a bundle of goods than for individual goods. And that economic principle or property can be translated into higher profits when the firm bundles goods together and then captures more of the consumer surplus by setting the bundled price at such a level that it captures in the aggregate more consumer surplus, as the movie theater did here. This is one reason that cable TV providers actually make 65% more selling bundled packages than they would if each channel were sold separately. Thanks for listening.